Hi there, welcome to Music Ally Focus. I'm Music Ally's managing editor, Joe Sparrow. And a quick reminder that you're listening to the Music Ally Focus Sacem Collabs podcast series, which is a 4-part exploration into the role of collective management organizations and how it's being reimagined for the digital age. From pioneering tech innovation to building a borderless global infrastructure, we're looking at how the strategies and services are ensuring that creators are thriving today in this rapidly shifting and extremely fragmented global ecosystem. Now, modern collective management is about much more than just collecting royalties. It's about helping create the infrastructure that makes the whole industry work as it's rapidly changing. Now, in this episode, we're joined by Julien Lefebvre, Head of Innovation and the Sacem Lab, to talk about this idea of Sacem being an open innovation CMO. Julien will explain why Sacem is opening up its proprietary technologies, including blockchain and data tools, to all creators, not just their members, and how that helps them benchmark the creation of their new work. We'll also dive into how Sacem Lab partners with startups to create a culture of innovation and ideally to benefit the entire music ecosystem. All right, let's go over to Julien right now. Hello, Julien. Good to have you here. Now, we're going to talk about the technological innovation that's happening at CMOs, particularly, of course, with Sacem, and what the future role of them is going to be after this sort of rapid technological change that we're navigating at the moment. You know, it is an exciting time for everybody, but also we want to know what's going to happen after all this. But first of all, can you just explain to us what you do? Like what do you do every day?
Okay, so I'm Julien Lefebvre. I've been working for Sacem for almost 10 years in the IT department. And initially, I joined as an IT architect, head of the IT architecture team. And I've been working on most of the major IT programs at Sacem, so online processing, customer relationship, repertoire management, and so on. And since 2020, I'm also in charge of Sacem Lab, which is the innovation team at Sacem.
Okay, so this is kind of why we're talking to you, because this is one of those roles that I always think is either more exciting than you think, or perhaps more complicated than you think. Working in innovation labs, because you also have this role to be on top of everything, right? And there's a lot of change happening technologically at the moment. So I know that you are dealing with a lot of different technologies. So can you just, as a little, before we start talking about the details, how does the Sacem Lab operate? You have all these technological options, and you experiment with them, or what?
Yeah, so it's not. I would say Sacem Lab is not only technology focused. So we are trying to navigate technology, but in the very specific context of the music industry ecosystem, and more specifically in the rights management ecosystem. So it's a dedicated team. So inside the IT department, we have 5 people and sometimes more when we have interns. So we do a lot of things, but always, I would say, always in the context of what are the Sacem's priority or members' priority. So it's not only, I would say, prototype using the latest technology or the latest buzzword or trend. So maybe I can develop that later, but yeah.
Yeah, right. So you're not sitting there with VR headsets on all day
No,
and
exactly.
navigating the metaverse.
Actually, we were thinking about buying some a few years ago, but we didn't.
Yes. Maybe
I
that was
think we did good.
maybe that was the right thing. So I mean, from you're looking at it, of course, from the perspective of a CMO, right? And so we have this, sort of classic understanding of what a CMO does in terms of the work it does collecting payments and licenses and things. But when you're looking ahead in terms of the lab perspective, what are your priorities then when you're looking at these new opportunities?
Okay, so it has been since 2020. It has been evolving quite a lot. So we reevaluate our strategy every year depending on the enterprise strategy and also on the ecosystem. So in 2020, 2021, we had a kind of more, I would say, externally focused innovation. It was a time of blockchain,
Right.
NFTs, a lot of movement, a lot of new startups. It was very active in the, I would say, in the innovation field in the music ecosystem. So at that time, we
Mm.
were focusing a lot of about, I would say, anticipation, trying to understand what was going on, how we could navigate these new trends. And currently, with the Gen AI, we've been much more focused on internal and incremental innovation to
Right.
improve our operations. So I would say it's that we don't have a fixed strategy. It also changes according these main two axes, which are strategy of Sacem strategy and also what's happening in the ecosystem.
And of course, the period you just mentioned since 2020 has just seen sort of tech hype um, transition after tech hype transition, right? And so it's obviously been a fairly exciting or busy time for you to navigate, NFTs from blockchain to NFTs to AI to VR to metaverse to AI, etc. Okay, but you know, that obviously some of those technologies work better than others for you. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was that you've sort of you're developing this technological approach where you're opening innovation to all creators. Okay, so obviously you have members as a CMO, but you're opening it out. Um, First of all, can you explain why you're taking that approach in terms of you're making this an open set of tools essentially, and can you give us some examples of how that's working?
Music creation is becoming more and more open and accessible. So that means we are seeing a huge number and diversity of creators. Actually, currently, we have almost 15,000 new members every year. So that's a huge number of
Mm.
new creators. But as I was saying, there's a huge diversity. For many of them, I mean, turning the creation into a profession is not necessarily the goal, or they don't know what will be their future in creation, I would say. But I mean, as a CMO, we think it's our role to support as many creators as possible and provide, I would say, provide services for every stage of the career of a creator.
Hmm.
So the, the service we launched, which is called Music Start, is open to any creator, whether they're a Sacem member or not. So Music Start, it's a very, I would say, very simple and basic service, which allow a creator to timestamp a creation
Right.
and to create a proof of precedence or prior creation. So you can just go to Music Start with your file being your lyrics in a PDF or MP3 with your recording, and just say I did this, and it will be timestamped with your identity.
Hmm.
And to do that, we use a blockchain. So
Right. As we're looking into the future, we were joking about the metaverse a minute ago, but also, music will be used in these different ways in the metaverse, in gaming, in all sorts of applications. Okay, and it's going to be used in ways we perhaps haven't fully thought about yet. So, for example, a song might be used sort of as a building block to make a virtual experience, and then the software may adapt that song on the go to change it for the situation in the experience. And I guess that this is the kind of being able to set a point of proof around an original song or a set of stems is might be. Do you foresee that being useful in the future as music is used in ways we can't picture yet?
yeah, so very, I mean, uh, we've been also currently at the moment we're speaking, we are developing an evolution of Music Start to help our creators who are using AI
Right.
uh, to record some proof of uh, their creative input on the creation, because it's the use of AI it's very tricky, because you can just have a very simple prompt and it will output something, and you couldn't say you really created something. You just say, create me a samba song, and you got something. That's not creative. But I mean, we have a lot of creators we know for certain that are using AI tools in a very creative way, because they are doing very complex prompts and iterations. Sometimes they even input their own music to the music to the AI music engine. So that's where a service like Music Start can be very important. As you were saying, you can timestamp what you will input to the AI engine, and then also timestamp different step, different iteration. It could help you prove you had a human input in your creation, even when you are using an AI tool.
I see. Okay. That is interesting, and these are the solutions that people are looking for. As you know, again, when I talk to artists, and particularly emerging artists, they are worried about how AI will affect their opportunity to create and be seen. So this is something that might help with that. You've mentioned a few times collaboration here, and we've been talking about it from the perspective of artists doing the collaboration. But what about the collaboration from your perspective in Sacem Lab? So you have this dedicated team, right? But then you're needing to think of technologies and ideas and approaches that work for people outside of the team and across lots of parts of the industry. How does collaboration then work from your perspective? Because you've got a big industry out there. So how do you choose who to collaborate with and how?
Okay, so collaboration is very important for us because we have a small team. So first, the way we see collaboration, we call it open innovation, is by working with external partners. So generally, these partners will be startups, but not necessarily. We can work with companies being very small startups, early stage, or established big tech companies. So what we do is, depending on the topic we are focused on, we are always scanning the ecosystem around us in France and abroad, and trying to find relevant partners that we can work with and to develop our prototypes. I can come back later on what are the priorities of Sacem Lab, but one of our main goals is to experiment and develop prototypes to prove proof of concept, and we aim for those proof of context to go live, to be industrialized, and to be used either by our members or by our collaborators internally. So we developed some of those proof of concepts with our internal team, but to scale and to be able to do more, we very often partner with external partners. I would say during a year, we will have generally around 10 collaboration with external partners, being startups or established company in France and abroad. We collaborate also with schools. Every year we run a project with a big engineering school here in Paris. So we have around the 3 and 5 students coming for 7 weeks, and we develop a prototype with them. So they are fully dedicated for 7 weeks to develop with us. And of course, we also collaborate with other CMOs.
I want to get back to your sort of view across the technological landscape at the moment. How are you've been observing it now for maybe 10 years. So we've sort of, again, joked about the changes that have happened, but there is this very rapid change and turnaround of priorities and focuses. First of all, does that sort of say to you that the startup landscape around music, and particularly around the areas that you're interacting with, does that mean it's healthy and to have lots of things happening like this?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I totally agree. Since 2020, the music tech landscape has evolved a lot.
Yeah.
And first, when we started, there was obviously a lot of startups in the music ecosystem, but the the feeling we had at the time is we had not so many synergies with the startups for different reasons. The first, I would say that most of the startups we were seeing in France and also abroad were focusing on, on areas of the music industry we were not focusing on, like ticketing,
Yeah.
events, marketing, fan engagement. So it was kind of difficult for us to find synergies with the startups. So of course there were some, but it wasn't so easy.
Yeah.
Then we saw the big, I would say the big era of blockchain and NFTs and metaverse. So, and then I would say a lot of startups were kind of technology focused. So
Mm.
they wanted to use the technology, but they were kind of looking the use case they would to address with that technology in the particular context of music. So it was, I would say, a very interesting time, but it was also very time consuming to navigate the
Mm.
music tech ecosystem and to try and understand what will be relevant in the midterm.
Yeah.
So now we can look back and I would say, unfortunately, most of the startups have disappeared now. The one who were specifically focused on blockchain or NFT or even metaverse. So that was, I would say, until 2023, 2024. And over the past 2 years, we have been noticing a very interesting change. So as I was saying, a lot of companies have disappeared, but we are now seeing a new kind of startups that are much more focused on, I would say, the core business of copyrights and data
Right.
analysis,
Yeah.
which is truly the backbone of our activity.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's very interesting. It was kind of, I would say, unexpected. Also, we have been noticing in the like big acquisition of data companies in the music industry, a big
Mm.
acquisition of even of CMOs. Like GMR was bought 2 years ago for $3 billion,
Yeah.
and BMI in the United States also went private, and so there's kind of a shift in the, I would say, in the music tech landscape, much more focusing on rights management, data analysis, like the very core activities of what we are doing. So for us, it's both. I would say it's both exciting because we are now seeing true opportunities of collaboration with some startups, but it's also challenging because some of those actors
Yeah.
are competitors for us.
Yeah. Right. And this is, you're right. This is an interesting change because I remember speaking to startups, I don't know, 7 years ago in the music world. Whatever they were trying to do, they all had the same complaint, which was it's really hard to get licensing to do anything with music. It's really hard to get hold of data that allows us to do interesting things. Now, the licensing music will always be a complicated thing for everybody, right? But though changes have happened, but in terms of these startups focusing on data and licensing and like you said, the backbone of this, do you think that's because the industry as a whole has got better at providing access to this data and they're able to play with it and do things?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think there is an improvement on two different aspects. The one is much more data is accessible, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And also, uh, there has been a huge effort in standardization of the format.
Yeah.
When I joined the music industry, it was already quite standardized. I would say I was surprised by the number of formats that were existing, but it has been improving a lot. So, I would say it also helps companies to provide services based on this data that is not accessible. But also, I would say it's also linked to the knowledge. As you mentioned, the music industry and specifically the rights management is a very complex area.
Mm. Yeah.
And the companies we see that emerge recently it's also they have been funded by people who know the industry. They understand what's going on, and I would say the startups we were seeing before focused on more technology aspects. I think one of their weak points was they were funded by people who didn't really understand the complexity of the music industry and the rights management ecosystem. So it was kind of difficult for them to provide relevant services. And currently, the company was seeing emerging in data. They are funded by people much more aware of the complexity of the ecosystem.
Yeah, right. And let's go back to that. One of your roles is to sort of, as you're navigating all these different technologies, part of the reason of that is to pick priorities and then encourage innovation, like a culture of innovation in that space within the sort of CMO level, but in the broader music ecosystem. What is Sacem's role in that, and what are the ingredients for encouraging that culture of innovation?
Yeah, so I think at Sacem, we are lucky to have a leadership and a company culture that really supports innovation. I think that's the basics. If you don't have top management who supports innovation and leave room for I would say self-managed teams to organize and define their priority and explore the ecosystem, it will be difficult to innovate. And at Sacem, we have the support of the top management for a long time now, or at least since 2020, and the creation of Sacem Lab. We always had the support of top management. That's really necessary. Then I would say to innovate, when you're in charge of an innovation lab, there's a lot of different paths you can take. So it's important to have a clear, I would say, company strategy to understand what are the goals of the company, and also again, a top management that leaves room for flexibility, accepts new ideas that go, I would say, beyond the usual framework. Um, and then I will come back also to another ingredient I think is diversity and being able to work with a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And depending on what we are doing, it can range from creators, publishers, every team we have at Sacem, we have very different teams depending on what they're dealing with. And have also an external outreach with startups, with schools, with other CMO, and participating in that ecosystem, being inside the music tech ecosystem. It takes time, but it's necessary to develop a culture of innovation.
In terms of collaboration with other CMOs, then in some ways they are and they are not competitors. If you see what I mean, it's a big collaborative thing, and yet at the same time, everybody is trying to develop better tools, and it's a funny situation. But what are those collaborations like with other CMOs? Can you sort of shine a light on? Can you describe how that works? What you do.
So it's not easy. So that's why when I mentioned collaboration earlier, I mentioned collaboration with CMO at last, because it's quite recent, to be honest. So first, I think it's important to understand that we're always trying to understand what other CMOs are doing, because as you are saying, we are in collaboration, but also we are competitors in some areas. So it's kind of a tricky situation. I think what we can say is, I think Sacem Lab is pretty unique in the CMO landscape. As far as we know, there aren't any other CMO with that level of innovation capability and resources to develop internally. First, I would say there are few CMO who have, I would say, innovation arm, even in any form, but to have a very dedicated team in the IT department with developers. As far as we know, we are the only one. But it doesn't. There are always different ways to approach innovation, and that hasn't stopped us from building some great collaboration over the past, I would say, 2 years. Uh, Especially, for example, with GEMA in Germany and with ASCAP in the US. So, for example,
What do they look like? What's the sort of example
okay,
of how that works?
so for example, we are. It's kind of basic, but we are exchanging data using new formats and technology to improve how we process our online rights. So that's something we've been able to set up quite quickly with new IT tools. We've also been working on shared topics where we decided it would be interesting to prototype two different approaches uh, and 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 share our results afterward. So it allows us to explore more options
Yeah.
while keeping the resource use under control. So we've done that to for Q sheets uh, numerization. So Q sheets, it can be in any format. It's very tricky. It can be very time consuming for teams to re-input Q sheets and stuff. So we've been focusing on try to ingest the Q sheets using Gen AI. And we've been working with GEMA to explore different. So they went their way, we went our way, and we had close, meetings to give feedbacks to each other. It was very interesting. Of course, I would say it requires trust, reciprocity, but we're really happy with the result, and we really plan to keep going on this kind of collaboration.
And of course, this is when we talk about the impact that AI is going to have, which is on everything. But it's very easy to get distracted by the glamour of like song generation or whatever. But actually, these kind of more focused and time saving uses are probably going to be the ones that are going to really deliver meaningful change and big value to your members, because you're reducing the amount of time that is spent to process this very difficult thing, whatever it is. And do you sort of foresee, as we look forwards a bit, that AI is going to be used in these kind of granular ways to make things easier in an industry where notoriously the data can reach you in multiple different ways?
Yeah, so it's something we are exploring since the end of 2023. So we I would say at CMO level, we see AI in two big different buckets. The one is AI in creation, which we of course deal with, but it's a lot of different legal and stuff, licensing, and then what I would call AI and operations. So it's more internal, incremental innovation, how we will use AI to improve our operations, to accelerate, I would say, to reduce some burdensome tasks. So we, at the end of 2023, we did this big tour of every department at Sacem, and we spent a day with every department, so 13 days in total, with a very big department. We did with several teams to understand what are their pain points, and try to understand how we could use AI to improve some areas of their work. So it led us with 13 projects, in then even 15 projects. And for the last 2 years, we've been rolling out those projects. So, and some have been real success. They are live now. They have been, I would say, included in our day-to-day tools. Some were failures. We didn't go on with those projects, but it led to very, very interesting stuff. But as you were mentioning, it's not really the big major changes. It's small or middle improvement
Mm.
in local areas, but we're still going on and working and going to see our teams, trying to understand what are the pain points and how we could improve.
Yeah.
So I would say for the moment, it's still local improvement.
Yeah.
It hasn't totally changed the CMO landscape, I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure it will in a short-term future, but it's very, very important to keep working on that and understanding the
Yeah.
evolution of the technology and how it could continue improving our operations.
So you're talking there about your approach in terms of working very carefully with individual teams and understanding what their needs, and I guess you're introducing into that mix the feedback from your members and from and how you collaborate with other CMOs, right? So you've got all these, that's why licensing and rights is so complex because there's so many pathways through the system, right? So if we look ahead to the future from this perspective, and all of these options you have to and things you have to keep in mind, what is the in terms of processes, maybe more than technology or thinking, um so like the thinking approach looking forward, how are you looking at sort of rights management for the future in terms of like this is how we're going to deal with it going forwards because of all these other changes?
That's a very broad question.
if you could
So,
if you could answer it in 30 seconds,
yeah,
yeah.
no, so first I was mentioning that AI it didn't changes everything for us internally. So for example, very complex topics like licensing or matching of rights, it doesn't solve magically everything. So we've
Mm,
been trying, but with very generative AI is generative. So
mm,
it doesn't solve very complex data problems. And it's not, I would say, magic ones that you can use for everything. So
mhm,
I know there is kind of a hype and some people are trying to sell that, but our conclusion is that it's not. There are
mm,
definitely some opportunities, but it's still a very complex processes we have to work with on licensing, on processing DSRs coming from the music platform, and it's still the core of our business, and we haven't found yet some
mm.
magic trick using AI to solve that. So no, the challenges in the future is I think there is a lot more competition in the ecosystem currently.
Mm,
Uh, Among CMO, some CMOs going private, tech companies coming to the field of rights processing. So
mhm,
it's challenging in a good way because it leads us to improve our services, to be better every day. Uh, at the same time, we have the challenge with AI and music. This time,
mm.
I'm not speaking AI in operations, but
Yeah,
AI in
yeah.
music. And it leads to a lot of, I mean, big questions regarding licenses, regarding when there will be licenses, how we will process the data, which data we will get
Yeah, yeah.
first. And I mean, it's interesting because it's always the same kind of pattern repeating. So first we have those companies going wild in the ecosystem without any license. And then there is I would say the legal aspects, and then there are some licenses.
Yeah.
And after the first licenses come, then we have to figure out, okay, so there is some licenses, there is some money. No, what are we doing with this? Which data we need to process and be able to distribute this money to the creator. So I think we are a very interesting time. We've been seeing some first licenses
Yeah.
last week, I think,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
2 weeks
Just
ago.
recently. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
between AI, Gen AI, music Gen AI platform and a major. So probably 2026 will be the beginning of this kind of new era where we will have to deal with new kind of data
Yeah.
and probably develop some kind of new solutions to be able to process this data, big licensing discussions.
Yeah.
I would say that's the main, I would say the elephant in the room.
That's another busy year.
Yeah, definitely. And also, we don't even know if those platform will be really successful.
Mm. Mm.
It's, I don't know. I don't see the classical DSP disappear in 10 years. I still
No.
think they will still be there, and maybe we will have some new kind of creation or usage with the music and music Gen AI platforms. But yeah, it's difficult to figure out for the moment.
Yeah, it really is, and you have the job of navigating that as well. So it's at least it's going to keep you busy. That's the good news, I guess. That there's like you said, there's a lot of challenges there, but of course, at the core of what music is, licensing music and making sure people get paid. So I mean, this is it is also an exciting time. Julien, one more question before we finish, then. And we've been talking about technology and the music industry the whole time. So my final question is about music, which is, I want to get a sort of picture of you as a person. Like, what is your favorite piece of music? Or it could be an album or a song or an artist's work. But what is it? If you could only pick one.
Yeah, I will be kind of classic, but I would say "What's Going On" from Marvin Gaye.
Okay, that's a great choice.
Yeah, that if I have to choose one.
Yeah, you do.
And
So
if it were songs in 2025, I will hesitate between one from Fred again with Skepta, which is called let me-
I know the one you mean.
Victory Lap.
Yes.
Victory Lap, and one of Maria the Scientist with Ally which is called let me find it. Easy to Crime. To Crime.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
One.
I will put links to all of those beneath the podcast so that the people can get a proper snapshot of who you are. But good choices. Thank you for that. So, Julien, thanks ever so much for joining us, and I hope you have an exciting year next year navigating all this.
I sure will. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Okay, that's it. You will find links to everything we discussed below and around this podcast. And as well, don't forget that this is one of 4 in the series, and you should be able to hop around your podcast player and find the other episodes. We'll put links to that too beneath the podcast. If you've enjoyed that, please do share it on with someone else who you think will get something out of it. And as ever, if you'd like to get in touch with me, please do. I'd love to hear from you. It's Joe, Joe, @musically.com. Okay, so that's it for this week. I've been me, you have been you. Thanks for joining us, and see you next time.